The Dreamweaver's Lullaby. In the quiet town of Whispering Pines, where the streets were lined with ancient oak trees and the air always carried a hint of lavender, lived a peculiar man named Elias Slumberwood. Known to the townsfolk as the Dreamweaver, Elias had a most unusual occupation. He crafted dreams. Elias lived in a cozy cottage at the edge of town, its walls covered in climbing moonflowers that bloomed only at night, their pearlescent petals glowing softly in the moonlight. The cottage was surrounded by a garden filled with herbs and flowers, each carefully tended to aid in his delicate work of dream creation. On this particular evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of amber and violet, Elias sat in his favorite armchair by the fireplace. His fingers, long and nimble, danced over a shimmering loom that seemed to be made of starlight and shadows. This was no ordinary loom, for it was upon this ethereal device that Elias wove the dreams that would drift through the town each night. As he worked, wisps of colorful threads appeared from thin air, twining around his fingers before finding their place in the intricate tapestry he was creating. Blues as deep as the ocean, greens as vibrant as spring leaves, and golds that sparkled like sunlight on water. All these and more came together under Elias's expert touch. The clock on the mantel chimed softly, reminding Elias that it was time for his nightly rounds. He carefully set aside his work, knowing that the dreams he had woven thus far would find their way to the sleeping minds of Whispering Pines residents. Elias stepped out into the cool night air, his footsteps silent on the cobblestone path. The streets were empty at this hour, save for a stray cat that regarded him with knowing yellow eyes before slinking away into the shadows. As he walked, Elias breathed deeply, inhaling the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the earthy aroma of the forest that bordered the town. His first stop was the home of old Mrs. Hawthorne, a widow who often struggled with loneliness. Elias paused outside her window, closing his eyes and extending his hands. From his fingertips, tendrils of golden light emerged, weaving themselves into a dream of a sunlit meadow where Mrs. Hawthorne was surrounded by loved ones, their laughter carried on a warm breeze. Moving on, Elias came to the house of young Timothy Parker, a boy who had recently lost his beloved dog. Here, Elias crafted a dream of joyful reunion, filling it with the sensation of soft fur and the sound of happy barks. He smiled softly, knowing that Timothy would wake feeling comforted and at peace. As Elias continued his journey through the sleeping town, he wove dreams tailored to each individual's needs. For the overworked teacher, Miss Rosewood, he created a dream of a tranquil beach vacation. For Mr. Flint, the gruff but kind-hearted blacksmith, Elias fashioned a dream of soaring through clouds, free from the constraints of his earthbound profession. The night deepened, and a gentle mist began to roll in from the nearby hills. Elias's pace slowed as he approached the town square, where a magnificent willow tree stood sentinel. Its branches swayed gently in the night breeze, leaves whispering secrets to those who knew how to listen. Beneath the willow, Elias paused to rest. He closed his eyes, allowing himself to absorb the peaceful energy of the sleeping town. In this moment of stillness, he became aware of the intricate web of dreams he had woven, each one connected to another in ways both subtle and profound. As he sat there, bathed in moonlight filtered through the willow's leaves, Elias reflected on the nature of his work. Dreams, he knew, were more than just fanciful stories that played out in sleeping minds. They were a bridge between the conscious and unconscious, a means of processing emotions, fears, and desires. In crafting these dreams, Elias hoped to provide comfort, inspiration, and sometimes even solutions to problems that seemed insurmountable in waking hours. The town clock chimed midnight, its deep tones reverberating through the square. Elias stood, stretching his arms towards the star-studded sky. He still had more dreams to weave before the night was through. His next destination was the home of the newly married couple, the Larksongs. As he approached their cottage, adorned with climbing roses, Elias sensed the lingering excitement of their recent nuptials. For them, he wove a shared dream of adventure, a hot air balloon ride over fantastical landscapes. Their hands clasped tight as they soared above cotton candy clouds and glittering crystal mountains. Moving on, Elias found himself outside the town's small hospital. Here, his work took on a more solemn tone. For those battling illness or recovering from injury, he crafted dreams of strength and healing. Soft, green tendrils of light flowed from his hands, carrying with them the essence of vitality and renewal. As the night wore on, Elias's steps grew slower, his own weariness beginning to set in. Yet he pressed on, knowing that each dream he wove was a gift, a small act of kindness in a world that often seemed too harsh. He came to the last house on his route, home to elderly Mr. Weatherby, a man who had seen much in his long life and now spent most of his days lost in memories. For Mr. Weatherby, Elias created a dream that was a tapestry of his fondest recollections, first loves, proud achievements, and moments of simple, perfect happiness. As the dream took shape, a smile played across Mr. Weatherby's sleeping face, and Elias felt a warmth in his heart. With his nightly task complete, Elias began the walk back to his cottage. The sky was beginning to lighten, the first hints of dawn painting the horizon in pale gold and rose. As he walked, Elias noticed something unusual, a figure sitting on a bench in the park, clearly awake despite the early hour. Curious, Elias approached. As he drew nearer, he recognized the figure as Sarah, a young woman who had recently moved to Whispering Pines. She looked up as he approached, her eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "You're the Dreamweaver, aren't you?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias nodded, settling himself on the bench beside her. "I am," he replied gently. "And you, my dear, look as though you haven't been dreaming at all." Sarah sighed, running a hand through her tousled hair. "I haven't," she admitted. "I haven't had a good night's sleep since I moved here. Every time I close my eyes, I'm plagued by worries and doubts. I'm beginning to think I made a mistake coming to this town." Elias listened patiently, his kind eyes never leaving Sarah's face. When she finished speaking, he was quiet for a moment, considering. Then, slowly, he reached out and took her hand in his. "Close your eyes," he instructed softly. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then complied. With his free hand, Elias began to weave, calling forth threads of the softest blue and silver. As he worked, he spoke in a low, soothing voice. "Imagine, if you will, a path through a moonlit forest. The ground beneath your feet is soft with moss, and the air is cool and fresh. With each step you take, you feel your worries melting away, replaced by a sense of peace and belonging." As Elias spoke, Sarah's tense shoulders began to relax, her breathing becoming deeper and more even. The path leads you to a clearing, where a small, crystal-clear pool reflects the starry sky above. As you gaze into its depths, you see not just your reflection, but the reflection of the person you hope to become: confident, content, and at home in this new place. A single tear slipped down Sarah's cheek, but her lips curved in a small smile. "You are not alone on this journey," Elias continued, his voice growing softer. "The trees whisper words of encouragement, the stars above twinkle with promise, and the very earth beneath your feet supports each step you take. This place, this moment, is a reminder that new beginnings, while sometimes frightening, are also full of potential and wonder." As Elias finished weaving the dream, Sarah's head gently came to rest on his shoulder, her breathing now slow and steady in sleep. Carefully, so as not to wake her, Elias eased her into a more comfortable position on the bench. He stood, looking down at the now peacefully sleeping Sarah. With a wave of his hand, he called forth a soft, warm breeze that would keep her comfortable until she woke naturally. Then, with a satisfied nod, he turned and continued on his way home. The sun was peeking over the horizon as Elias finally reached his cottage. The night-blooming flowers were closing their petals, making way for their daytime counterparts to greet. Elias paused at his garden gate, taking a moment to appreciate the changing of the guard in his beloved garden. Inside, he made his way to the kitchen, brewing a pot of chamomile tea, his nightly ritual before retiring to bed himself. As he sipped the soothing liquid, Elias reflected on the dreams he had woven that night. Each one was unique, tailored to the needs and desires of its recipient. Yet they were all connected by a common thread, the hope for a brighter tomorrow. Finishing his tea, Elias climbed the winding staircase to his bedroom. The room was small but cozy, dominated by a large, ornate bed with posts carved to resemble twisting vines. The window was open, allowing the sweet morning air to drift in, carrying with it the gentle chirping of awakening birds. As Elias settled into bed, pulling the soft, cloud-like covers over himself, he couldn't help but wonder, who weaves the dreamweaver's dreams? With this thought floating in his mind, he closed his eyes, allowing himself to drift off into a well-earned slumber. In his dreams, Elias found himself in a vast, starlit space. All around him, dreams floated like iridescent bubbles, each containing a world of wonder. He reached out, touching one gently, and found himself immersed in a symphony of color and sound. Another brought the sensation of flying, the wind rushing through his hair as he soared over fantastical landscapes. As he explored this dreamscape, Elias realized that these were fragments of all the dreams he had ever created, woven together into a tapestry more beautiful and complex than anything he could have imagined. In this space, he was both the creator and the dreamer, experiencing the joy and wonder of his own creations. When Elias awoke late in the afternoon, he felt refreshed and inspired. He made his way to his workroom, where the starlight loom awaited. As he settled into his chair, his fingers already itching to begin weaving, Elias smiled to himself. Another night would soon be upon Whispering Pines, and with it, a new opportunity to bring comfort, joy, and a touch of magic to its sleeping residents. And so, as the sun began its descent once more, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Elias the Dreamweaver prepared for another night of crafting dreams. For in this quiet town, where the air always carried a hint of lavender and the ancient oaks stood sentinel, dreams were more than just fleeting fancies of the night. They were the very fabric of hope, woven with care by a man who understood the power of a good night's sleep and the promise held within a beautiful dream. As darkness fell and the first stars began to twinkle in the velvet sky, Elias stepped out once more into the night, ready to weave new dreams for the slumbering town. And in homes throughout Whispering Pines, people settled into their beds, their hearts light with anticipation of the wondrous dreams that awaited them in the realm of sleep. As the moon rose high over Whispering Pines, casting its silvery light over the slumbering town, Elias the Dreamweaver began another night of his enchanting work. The air was thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine, and a gentle breeze whispered through the leaves of the ancient oaks, as if nature itself was conspiring to create the perfect atmosphere for sweet dreams. Elias stepped out of his cottage, his woven bag of dream dust slung over his shoulder. Tonight, he felt a special kind of energy in the air, a thrumming potential that spoke of extraordinary dreams waiting to be born. He took a deep breath, savoring the cool night air, and set off down the moonlit path. His first stop of the night was the home of the town's baker, Mr. Crumbleton. The kindly old man had been fretting lately about his grandson's upcoming visit, worried that his baking skills might have waned with age. Elias paused outside the baker's window, drawing forth strands of warm, golden dream dust from his bag. With graceful movements, Elias began to weave a dream for Mr. Crumbleton. In this dream, the old baker found himself in a sun-drenched kitchen, the air rich with the aroma of cinnamon and vanilla. His hands, no longer gnarled by age, moved with confident precision as he crafted the most magnificent pastries he had ever seen. The joy on his grandson's face as he bit into a perfectly flaky croissant filled Mr. Crumbleton's heart with warmth and pride. As Elias completed the dream, he saw a smile spread across the sleeping baker's face. Satisfied, he moved on, his footsteps silent on the cobblestone streets. His next destination was the home of young Luna, a girl who had recently lost her beloved cat. Luna's parents had told Elias of her grief, and he was determined to bring her some comfort. Outside her window, Elias drew forth strands of soft, pearlescent dream dust, weaving them into a tapestry of solace and joy. In Luna's dream, she found herself in a magical meadow where the flowers sang gentle lullabies and the grass felt like the softest velvet beneath her feet. There, frolicking among the colorful blooms, was her cat, healthy and happy. Luna spent the night playing with her feline friend, her laughter echoing through the dreamscape. When she would wake, the dream would leave her with a sense of peace, knowing that her cat was forever happy in this beautiful place. As the night deepened, Elias continued his rounds, weaving dreams of courage for the timid, dreams of calm for the anxious, and dreams of inspiration for those feeling lost. Each dream was crafted with care, tailored to the unique needs of its recipient. Halfway through his nightly journey, Elias paused in the town square, seating himself on a bench beneath the great willow tree. He closed his eyes, allowing himself to feel the collective energy of all the dreams he had woven so far. They hung in the air like invisible constellations, each one a tiny universe of hope and wonder. As he sat there, Elias became aware of a presence beside him. Opening his eyes, he saw Sarah, the young woman he had helped a few nights before. She was smiling, her eyes bright with a peace that hadn't been there during their last encounter. "I hoped I might find you here," Sarah said softly, her voice barely above a whisper so as not to disturb the quiet of the night. "I wanted to thank you. That dream you gave me, it changed everything. I've been sleeping better, and I'm starting to feel like I belong here." Elias smiled warmly, patting her hand. "I'm glad to hear it, my dear. Dreams have a way of showing us truths we might not see in our waking hours." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, listening to the gentle rustling of the willow's leaves. Then Sarah spoke again, her voice curious. "What about you, Elias? Who dreams for the Dreamweaver?" Elias chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling in the moonlight. "Ah, that's a fine question indeed. I suppose you could say that everyone in Whispering Pines dreams for me. Each smile I see, each burden I help lighten, each moment of joy I witness, these are the things that fill my own dreams." Sarah nodded thoughtfully, then stood. "Well, I should let you get back to your work. Thank you again, Elias. You've given this town a true gift." As Sarah walked away, disappearing into the misty night, Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. He stood, stretching his arms towards the star-strewn sky, and continued on his way. The remainder of the night passed in a gentle blur of shimmering dream dust and whispered hopes. Elias wove dreams of adventure for the homebound, dreams of reunion for the lonely, and dreams of discovery for the curious. Each dream was a small masterpiece, a blend of the dreamer's deepest wishes and Elias's careful craftsmanship. As the first light of dawn began to paint the eastern sky, Elias made his final stop of the night. It was a small house at the very edge of town, home to a painter who had been struggling with a creative block. Elias had been saving his most vibrant dream dust for this last dream. With sweeping gestures, Elias wove a dream of color and light. In this dream, the painter found herself in a world where every brushstroke brought forth not just images, but emotions and sensations. She painted the sound of laughter, the feeling of a warm embrace, the taste of a perfect summer peach. When she would wake, the lingering echoes of this dream would spark a creative renaissance, filling her canvases with works of unprecedented beauty and depth. His work complete, Elias made his way back to his cottage. The night-blooming flowers were closing their petals, bidding farewell to the moon as the sun began its ascent. Elias paused at his garden gate, taking a moment to appreciate the gentle transition from night to day. Inside, he prepared his usual pot of chamomile tea, the soothing aroma filling the cozy kitchen. As he sipped the warm liquid, Elias reflected on the night's work. Each dream he had woven was a thread in the grand tapestry of Whispering Pines, connecting the townspeople in ways they might never fully understand but would always deeply feel. Climbing the winding staircase to his bedroom, Elias felt the familiar wave of contented exhaustion that followed a night of dream weaving. He drew the curtains, plunging the room into a soft twilight. As he settled into his bed, pulling the cloud-soft covers over himself, Elias allowed his mind to drift. In the moments before sleep claimed him, Elias saw flashes of the dreams he had created, the joy on Mr. Crumbleton's face, the laughter of young Luna, the wonder in the painter's eyes. These images swirled together, forming the beginnings of Elias's own dreams. And so, as Whispering Pines began to stir, its residents awaking with smiles on their faces and a lingering sense of magic in their hearts, Elias the Dreamweaver drifted off into a well-earned slumber. In his dreams, he walked through an endless garden of starlight and shadow, where the hopes and wishes of all those he had touched bloomed like ethereal flowers. Tomorrow night would bring new dreams to weave, new stories to tell, and new comforts to provide. But for now, in this quiet moment between night and day, Elias rested, surrounded by the very magic he so lovingly crafted for others. And in homes throughout Whispering Pines, as people slowly awoke and went about their day, there lingered a sense of something special, a feeling of renewal, of possibility, of dreams that whispered of better things to come. For in this remarkable town, where the dreamweaver worked his gentle magic night after night. Every day held the promise of being just a little bit brighter, a little bit kinder, and a little bit more enchanted than the last.